Hello everyone, today we'll deal with what is confession under the Indian Evidence Act. So this has not been defined anywhere in the code, neither in this nor in the criminal procedure code. But according to Stephen, a confession is an admission made at any time by a person charged with the offense or the crime, stating or suggesting an inference that he has committed the offense or the crime. You have to remember this definition. Also, there is another definition of confession which was laid down by Lord Atkin in the Paklan and Swami case. So, he laid down that a confession must either admit in terms the offense or at any rate all the facts which constitute the offense. So, admit in terms and also the facts which constitute the offense is the confession. So basically, any admission which is capable of giving rise to an inference as to the guilt amounts to confession. So in order that a confession to be admissible, it is necessary that it must be in clear and definite terms and unmistakably point out the guilt of the accused. So confession may be inculpatory and exculpatory. So what is inculpatory? Where the accused directly admits his guilt, and exculpatory is where the accused absolves or excludes himself from the liability. So inculpatory are the confession which is favorable to the prosecution, whereas exculpatory is favorable to the accused. Suppose an example, during an investigation, a witness was interviewed who claimed that not only the defendant but another person has also committed the crime. So it is basically an exculpatory evidence. And where the accused, where in the confession, admits his guilt, then it is inculpatory statement or confession, and it is only admissible under the Evidence Act. So in the case of Palvinder Kaur versus State of Punjab, the court held that any confession must be taken as a whole or must be rejected as a whole. The court is not competent to take a portion of the confession while leaving the rest. So the confession must either stand as a whole or must fall as a whole. A portion of the statement which is of inculpatory nature cannot be admitted while rejecting the other portion which is exculpatory. Also, a confession may be judicial or extrajudicial. A confession is said to be judicial when it is made during the course of judicial proceedings and it is made before a magistrate. So, what is the evidentiary value of the judicial confession? It must, without any doubt, sustain a conviction. There is no corroboration or aiding is necessary because it is made in the court itself. So, extrajudicial confession, the confession which is made outside the court's premises of the judicial proceedings. So, what is the evidentiary value? It is lacking credibility, so it cannot be relied upon. It may be caused by influence or threat, and it needs to be checked very cautiously. So, basically, corroboration is required when it is needed to rely upon the extrajudicial confession. So now let's say retracted confession. Suppose an accused makes a confession. Later in the trial, he withdraws a confession or denies that he has not made such confession. So it is basically the retracted confession. So what is the evidentiary value of it? A retracted confession can be the sole basis for the conviction if such confession is found to be true and voluntary. Corroboration is required with material particulars. Court to weigh the earlier and the retracted confession so as to ensure that it should not affect the voluntary nature of the confession. It must be true, trustworthy, and no extraneous influence. So now let's see soliloquy confession. So confession made to oneself are called as soliloquous confessions. So confession need not be addressed to any particular person. It can be made to also oneself. So in the case of Sahu versus State of UP, the accused was tried for the murder of his daughter-in-law. He was found talking to himself that once for all the matter is settled, I have finished her once for all. Hereafter there will be no such quarrels. Here the question was whether this statement can be proved against him because it was not addressed to any particular person. So the court held that it is admissible. So a confessional statement in order to be admissible need not be made to a particular person. So now let's see the sections. Section 24. Confession caused by inducement, threat or promise when irrelevant in criminal proceedings. So the ingredients of the section are confession must be made by an accused person. It will be appearing to the court that the confession obtained by inducement, threat or promise it must have reference to the charge against the accused person. Mark the underlined words. And any such inducement, threat, or promise must proceed from the person in the authority. And any such inducement, threat, or promise must be sufficient in the opinion of the court to cause a reasonable belief in the mind of the accused that by making it he would gain an advantage or avoid an evil of a temporal nature. So basically, what is inducement? It is the greed of the person is making the confession under pressure. Suppose the police officer tells the accused person that you confess or else you will face a lifetime imprisonment, or your family will also be getting involved in this. So these are all threats or inducements. Also, for invalidating the confession under section 24, the confession must appear to have been made by inducement, threat, or promise. So the expression appears as used in this section 24 suggests that no substantive or positive evidence is necessary for the purpose of invalidating the confession on the ground of inducement, threat, or promise. It is sufficient if a slight doubt is created in the mind of the court that the confession is not voluntary and it is made on account of inducement, threat, or promise. Also, any such inducement, threat, or promise must proceed from a person in authority. Here, authority means a dominant position, that is a police, a clerk, a constable, or in the case of an employer to an employee. A person is said to be in authority who has got the power or who is capable of conferring some benefit or avoiding some evil or having power to interfere in the matter of prosecution of the accused. Lastly, the inducement, threat, and promise must be sufficient in the opinion of the court to cause a reasonable belief in the mind of the accused. So, in the eyes of the accused, there will be some reasonable belief that if I will not make it, then I will be only suffering or some other person will be suffering because of me. He would see that he would gain an advantage or avoid an evil of a temporal nature from his eyes. That means temporal nature means a thing which is not of spiritual nature. Suppose some person is threatened that he should confess, otherwise the Almighty will not be pleased with him and that he will go to hell. This threat is of a spiritual nature and not of a temporal nature and does not visit a confession. So now let's see section 25, that is confession to police officer not proved. It says no confession made to a police officer shall be proved as against a person accused of any offense. That means confession to a police officer is irrelevant. A police officer is never trusted in the matter of receiving of confessions from the accused. In India specifically, the police is in a very embarrassing position. Citizens are not conscious of their civil duties. When a crime takes place, people do not come forward to give evidence. When no person is inclined to come forward and give evidence, then what is the other way? There is no other alternative except extracting information from the mouth of the accused himself. So the system of applying the third degree method has become very common, and without that nobody would be inclined to make confession of his guilt. So under this section, in order to render a confession made to a police officer irrelevant, the confession must have been made in his presence or he must be near the person while making the confession. But the statements not amounting to confession are admissible. Confession made to a police officer cannot be proved against the accused person, but a statement made to a police officer are admissible. Suppose a person lost an FIR about a death. Later on, that person was found responsible for the murder. It was admissible as it was a statement first when it was made and not a confession. So now who is a police officer? So the power to file a the power to file a charge sheet under section 173 CRPC and has the person who has powers of an officer in charge of a police station authorized to investigate are the police officers. So the custom officers, forest range officers, the department of revenue intelligence officers, they are not police officers because confession made to them is admissible as they have no power to file charge sheet or investigate. So another point, statement of accused tape recorded by the police. Accused was not aware of the presence of the police or tape recording. Here the tape recording was admissible because it was relevant to the crime. The identification of the voice was established and it eliminated other non-essentials. So now section 26, confession by accused while in police custody not to be proved against him. So section 25 speaks of confession to police officer not admissible. Here in section 26, confession in the police custody not admissible. So a confession made by a person accused of an offence whilst in police custody is irrelevant unless it is made in the immediate presence of the magistrate, which is laid down under section 164, the recording of the confession of by the magistrate. So now see what when a person is said to be in police custody. Police custody does not mean that a person must be actually put in a police cell. A person may be living in his own house, but if the police officer is posted near the gate or near the door, he is deemed to be in police custody. So he must be in control, surveillance and influence of the police in order to be considered as the police custody. In the case of R versus Leicester, it was held that temporary absence of the policeman did not terminate the police custody. It even continues. Also, the confession must be made before the magistrate in order to be relevant. So, presence of the magistrate is compulsory in this section. The presence of the magistrate removes fear in the mind of the accused. A free and frank confession is ensured. Section 164 CRPC is followed, and the magistrate here means judicial magistrate and not executive magistrate. So this is all about section 24 to 26. I will discuss section 27 in the next video. Hope you all will like it. Please like and subscribe the video. Thank you.